Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pastor Bruce. Welcome to amvoice.net and One Man's Voice. Today I want to talk to you about two people, Maxine Waters and this Cortez girl out of New York City. At first, Maxine Waters promotes hate, people. She promotes hate. Donald Trump has gotten the black unemployment rate down to the lowest it's been in 17 years. Black people are back to work, as well as whites and Hispanics. All nationalities at work levels have increased, and the unemployment has decreased. For the simple fact he's bringing jobs into America, and he's working to get more. Yet Maxine Waters, the hater of the American way of life, hates Donald Trump. She outright hates him. And since the day he was elected as President of the United States, has called for his impeachment. Now, I called her stupid, and she is stupid, because no one can impeach a person from an office that hasn't taken the office. Yet her hatred is so strong because she beat her girlfriend, Hillary, that she wanted to talk about impeachment. It is absolutely pathetic how Maxine Waters has displayed her hatred as a representative from the House of Representatives, and the Republican Party has done nothing to censor her or to sanction her or to even fire her. We are supposed to be working together, but when you talk about hatred like Maxine Waters does, there's no working together because she refuses. She refuses to do anything that will benefit the American people, but she will do a lot for individuals who are not Americans. She will speak to you about the rule of law, how we all have to obey the rule of law. But yet, an illegal alien steps into this country, breaks the law, and they're going to get away with it. That's not the rule of law, people. Okay? That's socialism. And that's what Maxine Waters is all about, is socialism. The government being controlled by the Democrats to make the rest of us slaves. Now, you take people like Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg grew up in New York. She dropped out of high school. She's a high school dropout, according to things that are written about her in Wikipedia and so on. And yet here she is, a multimillionaire and a famous person here in the United States. It goes to show you that a capitalist system works when you can be a high school dropout and still become a millionaire. Which brings me to my second person. But understand this. She hates Donald Trump. She hates the fact that kids are being, as they say, torn away from their parents, which is an outright lie, okay? They're not being torn away, but I have to ask Whoopi Goldberg, what about all those American children, black, Latino, and white, that are being ripped out of the arms of their parents so that they can be sent off to jail? And the kids never see, in some cases, will never see their parent again because they get life sentences. What about Elian Gonzalez, I think his name was, back during the Clinton era, that was in the arms of his aunt, and the FBI in the middle of the night broke into the house and ripped that child out of her arms? Was that okay, Whoopi? Was that okay for her to do that? And that's what happened. But nobody said anything about it. Oh, well, the father wants the child back. The child asked for sanctuary, but he was denied. Because under the Clinton administration, they're globalists. They want to be happy and content with everybody. So understand, Whoopi Goldberg and her rant and hatred is right up there with Maxine Waters. But the difference is at least Maxine Waters has got some sort of an education. Whoopi Goldberg needs to shut her mouth, because all she does is promote hate. just like Maxine Waters does, and Maxine Waters has to shut her mouth. But I have to admit, Whoopi Goldberg, who I like as an actress, I loved her in the Star Trek series. I really did. I enjoyed watching her. I've watched some of her films, and I have enjoyed her performance in some of her films. Goes to show you, you don't need a college education. But don't sit there and think, as a high school dropout who learns how to read other people's words, that you have the inkling of an idea of what the truth of the matter is all about. And I say that about every high school dropout that's in Hollywood, because they really don't. And they don't really want to bother with it. They're rich, so-called elite people who have other people do things for them. You want me to say something? Write it down. I'll repeat what you tell me to say. Otherwise, I don't want to hear it. Which leads me over to the other coast, to Cortez, the 28-year-old who already started her career off with a lie. She's running for a district that she said she grew up in, which she didn't. She grew up as either a middle class or affluent class in New York City, outside the district that she's running for. And she knows she lied, but that's okay, because you see, that's what Democrats do. They promote lying. And she lied about where she grew up, what school she attended, and she won the nomination. Well, okay, fine. All right, let's correct the record. Let's make sure that she doesn't lie again. But if you listen to her interviews, ladies and gentlemen, she's 28 years old. When asked about Russia and Palestine, I think I meant, you think you meant you're running for the highest position in the government, a representative in the federal government of your people, and you think you don't know? I mean, come on. You're talking, the Republicans, the Democrats and the left wing are saying Donald Trump doesn't have the experience. Does she have the experience to be a second seat? And she admits to being a socialist. She admits to saying everybody should have free health care. She admits to saying that everybody should have a free education. Free. Nothing is free, people. We earn it one way or another, or we pay for it one way or another. Now, you may think you're getting a free education, but if your taxes go up, that's not a free education. What is that? You're paying for it through your taxes. And if they tax the rich, what are the rich going to do? Especially business owners. They're going to turn around and they're going to raise the prices on their product. Why? To pay the taxes so that you can have a free education. That's socialism. It's not democracy. And it's not a capitalist system. I've said it before, I'll say it again. America is like the New York Yankees. The New York Yankees are willing to pay you good money to play for their team. I mean, they've got more pennants than anyone else. They've won more World Series than anyone else. They've had the greatest names on their team more than anyone else. And they pay for it. Why? If you're good at what you do, you deserve to get the payment. America says, you want to come over here and work, and if you are good at what you do, we'll pay you for that work. And that's what America is all about. That's what capitalism is all about. According to Cortez, capitalism hasn't been around for a long time. Well, that's right. It hasn't been. Capitalism came up with the growth of the American way of life. You want to earn money? Work for it. You want to work, you'll earn money. Plain and simple. That's capitalism. You want to buy something? Buy it. You want to go somewhere? Pay for it. That's capitalism. But you need to work to make money in order to do that. You see, when it comes down to socialists like Cortez, she has absolutely no clue about capitalism, how capitalism works, and how capitalism has made not only America, but the rest of the world, a great place to live. If she goes back and studies history, she'll find out that Italy had more crashes of their monetary system. They had places that had their own counties that had their own monetary system, and it was very difficult to take money out of one district and go over to another because they wouldn't accept it. I mean, it was ridiculous that the way the Italians, and that's socialist, people, that's socialist, okay? Even take a look at England. I spent 7 years over in England watching how they work. They're a flat 15% in tax rate. Everybody pays 15%. But then you have to wait. If it's not an emergency, you wait, and you can wait up to 2 years before you see a doctor for your whatever illnesses you have, as long as it's not an emergency, because they could care less. There's no incentive to do better because their prices are guarded because they have to collect the money from their government. Yes, everybody has free health care. Yes, everybody pays a flat rate of 15%. And in talking to some businessmen over there, their salaries weren't all that great. But what the corporations did was they would buy condominiums or homes or apartments, and they would offer their best employees a place to live instead of giving them a pay raise. And they lived it very comfortably with not having to hand out a whole lot of money, if any at all. That's socialism. Okay? And isn't that discriminatory? Oh, well, you're doing real good for us as an executive, so we're going to give you your own apartment. But hey, you're not doing so well as an employee, so you're not going to get any extra benefits. That's discrimination. But that's socialism. And that changed during the Maggie Thatcher time period with Ronald Reagan. And it became a social democracy. And it worked a lot better. And it's still working better. But capitalism makes things grow. Socialism, communism, totalitarianism do not make things grow. In that case, it stagnates. And in some cases, even dies. And we've seen that around the world. Yes, capitalism hasn't been around very long. But in the time period it's been around, with our form of government and our capitalist system, we became the most powerful nation in less than 250 years. I've said it before, that England, Germany, France, Spain, Russia, Japan, China, they've all major countries have been around since the BCs. And yet, the most powerful nation in the world has only been around for less than 250 years. Why is that? Because our system of government and our system of financial stability works. That's why. And our belief in that we're not going to go out there and conquer other lands, but we will help other lands build themselves up to be better than what they are. That worked. Socialists don't want to do that. Socialists want to give everything away. Bernie Sanders said it when he was running for the presidency. Free health care, free education. They'd cancel all of the debts of the college students who can't pay. Why? Because they couldn't get a job. And that's another thing Cortez says. The low unemployment rate, understand how stupid she really is. The low unemployment rate is because people are taking on second jobs. Wait a minute. That has nothing to do with the low numbers of unemployed people. Because you see, the ones that are working, if they take on a second job, are not included in the unemployment numbers. It's the ones that are on welfare and food stamps, the ones that are on unemployment payments, trying to make ends meet. Those are the people that are getting the jobs. Those are the people that are lowering the unemployment rolls and raising the employment rolls. Now President Trump has come up with an apprentice program that will not cost the American people. And I have to go back to Reagan. Reagan had the CETA program, I believe it was, and where the federal government paid half of the salary of individuals that were hired by corporations until that individual is caught up on doing what they have to do. The CETA program, I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. But here with President Trump, he has an economic view of getting those that are not qualified trained, and it's not costing them anything. It's not costing you, the taxpayers, any money. Now, yes, did we have unemployment, or did we have employment numbers raise under Obama? Yes, we did. Minimum wage jobs. Now, here's the thing about that. President Obama came out and said people cannot live, or families cannot live, on minimum wage, which is absolutely correct, because minimum wage was not established to help families. Minimum wage was established to give young people and college people an opportunity to work and make some money to get used to being in a business industry. Now it's come all down to fast foods, and people don't want to flip burgers for $10 an hour. So we need to raise the minimum wage. No, you don't need to raise the minimum wage. What you need to do is create jobs that pay more money. And under the 8 years of the Democratic way, they didn't. And they raised taxes to pay for things. Your free health care, or your health care, which was supposed to be affordable, was filled, if you go back and read it, with taxes. That's all it was a big tax plan to bring more money into the federal government. And it failed. It failed. Because people, even though they had the opportunity for health care, still couldn't afford health care, and therefore paid a penalty. And as I remember, I believe it was Trump that said that they got rid of the law that says you have to pay a penalty for not having insurance, because you couldn't afford the insurance, but you can afford the penalty. It's a tax, and you're not getting that tax money back. That's a socialist attitude. We're going to tax you on everything and anything, and we're going to bring in all the money to help the people that don't want to do anything, that are willing to be slaves to the Democratic Party. Now, Miss Cortez out there in California out in New York, has a whole bunch of stupid people behind her willing to put her into a position in the federal government. And what the Democrats are saying, this socialist, admitted socialist, is the new face of the Democratic Party. Now, I've told you in the past that the social democrats that we already have in office are doing everything they can to destroy the American way of life. And here, an admitted socialist running, instead of she's running on the socialist ticket, she's running on the Democratic ticket, because socialists will not, on their own, be elected into any office in this country. But when they run as a Democrat, then they're lying, aren't they? Because they're not really Democrats. They're socialists. Bernie Sanders ran as a Democrat who's a socialist. And what about the New York, de Blasio, the mayor of New York City? He's a socialist, ran on the Democratic ticket. Why? Because the Democrats are closer to the socialists than the Republicans are. So understand, these stupid people out there in New York are setting the course for the future. And the future is going to be socialists rather than the Democrats running against Republicans. But they will call themselves social democrats. They still believe in the socialist way. The government pays for everything. You pay for the government. We want a single payer system. No, we don't. That's not capitalist. You want health insurance? It's not a right. It's not a privilege. It's if you can afford your health insurance, go out and buy health insurance. If you can't, then the federal government has to take care of you. But once you sit there and say, okay, we're going the socialist way, then nobody has to pay for health insurance. And we've seen in the past what happens in foreign countries where socialism pays for health care. It is a wrecked system. But the Democrats will not teach that in the educational system for the simple fact that if you understood how bad socialism was, you would turn your back on it. And that's the way it should be. So here we have a socialist running in a democratic election and saying that she's a Democrat. She's not a Democrat. She's a socialist. And she wants to destroy the Constitution, as does Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Chuck Schumer. They stand there and they say, yeah, we're for the American way of life. We're for the Constitution. But as soon as the Democrats take control, they're going to destroy that Constitution. And they're going to destroy your rights. And they're going to raise your taxes. All for the betterment of the American people. No, for the betterment of the illegal aliens that are coming into this country who have nothing. They'll give them what they're doing already. They're giving them welfare. They're giving them Social Security program money in order to be able to survive in this country. These are the people that believe in the rule of law and have turned their back on the rule of law for their own profit and for their own greed and selfishness. Look at California. San Francisco is now allowing illegal aliens to vote in the school board elections. Why? Because their kids go to school there, so they should have a right. Do you understand that I would say a good 85% of illegal aliens have no clue of what our educational system is about, has no clue what the school board does, has no clue about voting for people on the school board. They're just here illegally to make money, to send back to their home country so that their home country profits while we lose. And they take advantage of our healthcare system. Do you think that illegal aliens are being penalized for not having during the Obama administration? Do you think that they were penalized for not having health insurance? No, they weren't. But you were. And you millennials have absolutely no clue because you weren't taught properly in a democratic-controlled educational system. You know, they sit there, and I have to ask the question. They sit there and say the Russians are the one that interfered. Maybe they did. China's interfered. They've busted into our system a couple of times. How about other nations? But here's the thing, people, and understand this. There was a leak of Democrat emails, high-ranking official Democrat emails, Hillary Clinton's emails. They're blaming the Russians on it. I'm sorry, but did we have a Florida representative in Congress who hired an IT man from Pakistan and his brother, and I believe his wife, and when she found out that he was under investigation, continued to leave him sit in the position, and while in that position, he had access to many Democrats' emails. And when you have access to one, you can get access to a whole bunch of others. Understand that. Did he leak the information to the Russians? Did he do it to WikiLeaks? We don't know. We just know that he was caught trying to embezzle, and he's going to get probation for that. If you were caught embezzling people, you'd go to jail, because that's the rule of law for us. But for him, because he is up there working, and even after stealing millions upon millions of dollars from the federal government, all he's going to get is probation. I mean, that's an absolute joke. And it goes to show that the rule of law is not for everybody. If you're part of the so-called elite in government, Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Chuck Schumer, the former head of the FBI, James Comey, the other individuals that have been mentioned over the last several months, of the crimes that they've committed against this country, the coup, and what's happening? Absolutely nothing. Hearing upon hearing upon hearing upon hearing. And it's a joke. And the Democrats know that the Republicans aren't going to do anything about it. They're going to sit there and make a mockery out of the U.S. government and laugh at the Republicans and the American people because nothing's going to happen to them. And that's sad, people. That shows a dual system. And for the black people in this country who felt that there's a different class for blacks, you're absolutely right. Because you're poor. You don't have the people to defend you. And the same goes for whites. There are a lot of white people that if you don't have the money, you're going to jail for doing the exact same thing that the head people in the FBI, the Department of Justice, CIA have done. You know, an airman, I'm sorry, not an airman, but a seaman took a picture of a classified equipment on board a submarine. He was given a year in jail. Hillary Clinton had classified information on her server. Now, he never distributed the information to anybody. It was on his camera. And he got a year. Hillary Clinton had classified material on an unauthorized server. And she got nothing. You want to talk about a dual standard? And he was white. So don't think it's only black people that are being persecuted by the injustice in the law. Even white people are being persecuted. Why? Because the Democratic Party wants to make this country a country full of slaves. And if you've listened to the black leadership coming out, finally talking about how the Democrats are using and abusing black people, you get to understand that they already think, that's why Hillary never went to Michigan. She already believed she had the black vote up there. She didn't have to go up there. So what did she do in the last couple of days? She went to Florida to try to coax the Latino vote to her side. Why? She already had the black vote. That's taking advantage of you. Okay? Because you're a Democrat. Because you've been lied to, you've been dumbed down, and you've been denied, but we'll give you welfare. We'll give you food stamps. We'll give you a place to live. Don't worry about it. Just vote for the Democrats. You know what that's called, people? That's called slavery. Okay? Go back and study slavery. They were given a roof over their head, clothes on their back, food to eat. They had to go out and work. They had to work on the plantations. And that is exactly what the Democrats are doing with the people today. And they're even taking on, because a lot of black people don't understand this and don't appreciate it. And I know the uneducated Whoopi Goldberg doesn't understand this, but there were white people that were slaves back during the slave period. You see, the N-word, which I won't use, was defined as someone, not identifying a color, but someone who was illiterate and unintelligent. And ladies and gentlemen, you had a whole bunch of white people in the South that were illiterate and unintelligent. And they became slaves to the plantation owners, just as the blacks did. Well, guess what? Today, there are a whole bunch of illiterate people on the whites as well as the blacks. And they're sitting there being given food stamps and being given HUD housing and being given welfare and say, just vote for us. We're Democrats. We'll give you everything. When it was the Democrats who started the KKK to suppress the black people, they're doing the exact same thing today in our society. And people like Cortez, that has no clue of what the capitalist system is all about, just because it hasn't been around for very long doesn't mean it's wrong. But that's what she wants you to believe. And that America is wrong because we're not giving anything away for free. You come here to work, to earn money, to make a living, to succeed. Whoopi Goldberg was a dropout from high school, and she's a multimillionaire because she had the heart, the dedication, and the chutzpah to go out there and do what she needed to do in order to make a success of herself. And she did it. Now she spreads her hate on The View, along with that Barr woman. I don't know what her name is. They both spread hate. They don't listen to the other side. They believe their opinion is correct and no one else's. So understand this, people. The Democrats want you as slaves in this country. They won't admit to it. They won't tell you that. Why? Because they're liars, as we've seen with Cortez. And if what's-her-face up there in Boston would submit to a blood test, we can determine if she's any part Indian, which I believe she won't be. She used that excuse in order to get into college. The only reason. Now she sits there, and now she's promoting a casino, Indian-run casino. I mean, the Democrats hate people. They hate. Who is doing all of the talking about being sexist? The Democrats, talking about how the Republicans and the conservatives are misogynist, they're sexist, they're homophobic, and yet who has the majority of the pedophiles? Isn't it Hollywood? Didn't we have a young man come out and admit that there are a bunch of pedophiles running around in Hollywood, and Hollywood is democratic? And who's the one that's going to jail or has gone to jail, who's been in hiding in seclusion because of his abuse of women? That's Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, who was close associates with Bill and Hillary Clinton. He's a Democrat. So you see, they're pointing fingers at the Republicans of things that their own party is part of. It's sad. It really is, to think that the American way of life is going to be destroyed because of a bunch of socialists sitting in the government that no longer want to live with the freedom of speech, no longer want to live with the right to bear arms, no longer want to live with the Fifth Amendment. I mean, if you study the shows, the police shows that are on there, very few sit and read the rights to you on the show. They skip that altogether. They go right into the questioning. Now, here's something that a lot of you may not, and I'm going to close on this, a lot of you may not understand, okay? When you want a warrant, you have to have justification for the warrant. When I was a policeman, we had a case where we had domestic disturbance. And when we responded to the domestic disturbance, we saw evidence of maybe drug use. So they called up the attorney, or the judge, staff judge advocate, advised them of what we had, and he came back and said, you have sufficient amount of evidence. Well, I was called up at 2 o'clock in the morning as an investigator, and I went out to investigate. I had the warrant. I issued them the warrant, and I began searching their trailer. That they were living in the trailer on base. And just before we concluded the search, I started in the back and worked my way up to the front. We found a tray with about a pound of marijuana sitting underneath the couch. They thought they got away with it. And yet, when I asked them to stand up from the couch, they became nervous. And when I looked under there, there was the tray. What he was doing was separating the seeds and the stems from the leaves. They were both placed under apprehension for possession of an illegal substance. And, of course, she lost her job in the military, and they were both kicked off base. He was just detained and released later on, but he also had to serve, talk about the domestic violence that occurred on his part. You see, we had the evidence. Now, with this Mueller investigation, this is the point I want to make, had what we said been wrong, then all of that evidence that we would have gathered would have been inadmissible in court. Why? It was obtained illegally. Okay? We didn't have proper circumstance to warrant the warrant and to search. Now, here's the thing. You have a phony dossier which was used to get search warrants. They know it's a phony dossier, and they're using that as justification for the search warrants. Well, guess what? Anything found under that search warrant is illegally obtained because it's a fraudulent form. The dossier was found to be nothing more than something that the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, and the DNC paid for to destroy Trump with. So everything and anything that comes out should not be admissible in court. And yet, do the Republicans go up there and say anything about that? No. They just allow the Democrats to walk all over them and abuse them because they're not used to being in control. That's why this next election is vitally important, people. The Republicans need to be put in full control of the House and the Senate so they can regain their balance and understand that they have the authority to put people in jail. As the Democrats know, they've already done it. There's no more dual standard when it comes to the law. High-ranking Democrats are still guilty of violations of the law, and they need to be prosecuted. And if they're not prosecuted, our system of government is lost. Our system of justice is lost. And with that, I want to thank you for listening. This is about one of the longest tapes I've done, but I want to thank you for listening. I hope that you'll take this into stride and understand what I'm trying to say to you. And if you have any questions or comments on my website, amvoice.net, there is a place you can go in and send me an email and voice your comments, and I'll talk about them. I will talk about them. But unless I hear from you, I'm just going to continue. If you've got something better, you got proof that what I'm saying is wrong, show me your proof. See, the Democrats always say that to the Republicans. The Democrats don't believe they have to show proof. What they say is right, nobody else can argue with them. But Republicans, if they talk up and say something, show me your proof. Well, I've got the proof. I've been around for 66 years. I've learned a lot since the 1960s. And I've studied since the 1960s. Some of the things I talk about, I might not have physical proof, but I know the proof is out there because I lived through it. With that, I say God bless. Take care. Open your heart and your eyes to the truth and help keep the American way going. God bless.